Alright. Hi, everybody. Dhaman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. Let's just dive into the stories this time, starting with Blank Card Hiatus by DomYang. Nice of this person to write that they were going on a hiatus into their title when they updated it. So this story is a Persona 3 and 4 story, kind of, where after a couple years after the events of both games, Minato comes back to life with a clingy Nyx as his new persona and, yandere kind of girlfriend, and then basically starts a new SMT style adventure on his own after briefly showing up, surprising, and then kicking around the cast of P3 and P4. So the section with where he meets up with the old cast and such, and their relationship is honestly pretty irrelevant because it happens and it's kind of self-contained, and then it moves on to oh, he's now doing something else and completely going on its own story. And honestly, it could have actually just been removed completely and not even be there, so it feels just kind of pointless as written. Maybe it would have had a more impact if the story had continued, because they could have brought the people back and had more stuff there, but as what's here is, it just feels kind of irrelevant except to make everybody else feel bad. Aside from that, what is in the story is basically just Minato showing up, showing that he's a supreme badass, and also just rizzing up every single girl and female character that he comes across and falling in love for his harem, hijinks as, they start forming a bit of a dynamic going on and such. It's mildly enjoyable, but not narratively satisfying in any real way. It's going to fall off my list. Number 2 is Godling Ascending by High Pot in Noose. You could clearly tell with the pun, but whatever. This is a Harry Potter Percy Jackson crossover where, Harry is, I'm assuming a son of Zeus, a daughter, I should say, daughter of Zeus. I'm not entirely sure. All I know is just I didn't click with this story at all. Harry here is kind of a spirited queen bee who has supernatural, obviously the supernatural charisma of a goddess, and has everybody flock to her. And is all pretty nice and stuff, but I just did not give a shit. I found the differences during going, so I only got through about 5 or 6 chapters of this, which is still in the going through the Harry Potter stuff, because this takes place timeline wise, it takes place actually during the 90s, and then the Percy Jackson stuff is meant to take place later, so it first goes through all the Harry Potter stuff, and I just didn't care. The changes were okay, a little interesting, but I just didn't find myself wanting to read this and continue this. During those early parts, the gods only briefly get mentioned. Nothing else shows up. It just never clicked with me, and I never found myself wanting to actually continue, so I just dropped it, and it's gonna fall off my list. Next is Harry Potter and the Seven Kingdoms by Ferz. This time Harry, after his stuff and becoming the Master of Death, gets shanghaied into the Game of Thrones universe and shows up basically at the start of the first Game of Thrones book, right when the Starks are getting their direwolves. The way he's injected into the story, Harry feels kind of blasé and casual-ish, I guess. He shows up just there and just tells the Starks hey, yeah, the stranger sent me to do some shit, I don't know, and it all just felt really underwhelming and just killed my interest in the story. Harry then hops around a bit, goes to a couple places with his magic, can teleport around, so he goes around and comes back a bit, and then joins the Starks for their trek down to King's Landing. And then the story stops before they get there. I don't know. The setup felt juvenile for here, a writer's first work or so, and not really fluid, and much going on. I think you just skip this, and it's not going to stay on my list. Number 4 is Second Wind by The Lost Samurai. This is pretty straightforward One Piece time travel fic. Here we have like Luffy and Zoro at the end of their journey where like everybody died. They go back in time to the starts of their journey, and then want to like relive and stuff. It's like, and we get overall like they're a bit more haunted by the stuff, so they're trying to relive their stories and stuff while making things a little bit better, and like they come off as a bit more enigmatic and mysterious than they normally were to the rest of the cast. And overall it's a fun like fix it fic style retelling of this, with a more mature Luffy and Zoro like keeping an eye out for the others while still trying to have the same like casual fun and stuff that they had during their initial thing. I enjoyed it well enough, and it gets a decent way through. The story gets up to like Impel Dawn before the author decided to drop it, and so we get some good, good fights and like curb stomps of like I want to fix it against like the major antagonists that most One Piece stories that I've read like go through, where like you get the Arlong fight, you get the crocodile fight, you get the NL fight, and all those stuff with the future characters. I think it's fine. It's just a fun little story that I enjoyed, and I like my time travel and fix it fix, so this is gonna stay on my list. Next is I Scion by Ak1308. This is a follow up to his self-insert fix of both Security and I Panacea. Mainly a sequel to like I Panacea, where after that he gets stuck in Scion's body. And it's basically just a nice, quick little bit of humor where he solves the main problems that people think about when you read Base Worm, of like like solving Brockton Bay, killing some of the big bads like the Slaughterhouse 9 and the Ellisberg and such, and like saving Canary and like freeing Dragon and things. Like mainly the big things that stick out when you just randomly casually think of Worm, not all the other like horrible things in the world and such, but like whatever, it's there. It's a small bit of fun that didn't really give me any huge like gut wrenching laughs, but like brought a bunch of small smiles, and so I recommend it for a read, and I think you'll enjoy it as a read. But I don't think I would revisit this again and again, so it's gonna fall off my list. Number 6 is Mr. John's Storybook by Mr. John, and this is just a bunch of Worm like snippets and one shots that are all for the most part sexually charged, sexually focused, with a lot of kinky stuff thrown in, and then there's a couple that are just introspective or like thoughtful pieces that are there. It's okay if you want some kinky Worm flavored smut, and go ahead, but I don't see a need to revisit this, so yeah, it's gonna fall off my list. And finally, we have Crazy Happenstance by Ideal Mind. So this is a Harry Potter Percy Jackson crossover where Harry just one day ends up naked in the Percy Jackson universe, and just starts dealing with it, and like having a bit of insanity, like going off and like just living. It plays up the whole like this is insanity. It's a really random world. Like Harry's like an insane wizard and doing stuff stereotype that doesn't really know how people interact or muggles and stuff. And like I guess like the antics are amusing, but like after I gave like any kind of thought about it, it just kept. I did not like how this was going, and like the world is going. Like basically all of the humor of this story is centered around both Harry and the gods of Olympus, like being gigantic assholes that treat everybody around them as like playthings or just pieces for the pawns for their amusement and things like that, and just like getting pissed when anybody tries to or says anything against them or like that, and like only the gods of Olympus actually get any blowback or anything like that, whereas like Harry, he's the protagonist, so anything that happens to him and him doing stuff, that's fine, like he's just do whatever like that. And it just put a bad taste in my mouth, like that kind of just treating people so callously and stuff, like it's weird. It's like, why why it doesn't get into really Harry. We don't see Harry's backstory or any reason for this, like, because I guess obviously it's meant to be just treated as like, oh, it's just crazy joke stuff like that. But like, why is Harry, kid was abused, all this stuff like that, just all of a sudden now completely unable to talk, like, or like even see anything like normal, like, you know, regular people and such, and it's just like, oh no, like magic, like everything's like, oh, muggles, like screw them, like, oh, this guy, like, obviously he wants to, like, you know, be like make money off me and stuff, but like, oh, let me just constantly, you know, mind control him and do stuff and all this stuff, and like just throwing everything out there and just doing it. It's like, why? Like, it just is not a good feeling when even your protagonist is an asshole but gets away with everything that supposedly the gods don't do because they're such horrible people, when in the story Harry honestly, like, feels much worse than the gods that are getting some comeuppance are. Like, it's not for me. I don't know, like, it's gonna fall off my list. So there we go. A lot of cleaning out this time. Fan fiction status time. I've now read 1,125 stories, and 527 of them have managed to stay on my list. So thank you all so much for watching. I have about, I believe I have exactly 120 stories left to go for this video series. And yeah, so as always, I will leave links to the stories in the description, as well as a link to a forum where I also post all this in written form, as well as a playlist for if you want to see these from the beginning, and also a link to my profile if you want to see there and see what the upcoming stories are, or, you know, the other ones that are still on my list are. So yeah, thank you all again for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.